In this episode, we move into a topic that sits underneath nearly every successful security program, even though it is often less visible than tools, alerts, or technical controls. Organizational structures, roles, and responsibilities in security governance determine who makes decisions, who owns risk, who carries out protective work, and who is expected to respond when something goes wrong. For brand new learners, this can sound like management paperwork rather than real cybersecurity, but that impression misses something important. Security becomes weak very quickly when people are unsure who approves a policy, who is accountable for a system, who decides whether a risk is acceptable, or who has the authority to act during an incident. Good governance turns security from a loose collection of intentions into a coordinated system of direction, ownership, communication, and accountability. And that is why understanding structure matters so much for anyone who wants to grasp how security actually functions inside a real organization. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A helpful place to start is by understanding what organizational structure means in the first place. In simple terms, it describes how authority, reporting lines, decision-making, and work responsibilities are arranged across the organization. Some companies are highly centralized, with many major decisions made by a small number of leaders or core departments. Others are more distributed, with business units, regional teams, or product groups having greater control over how work is done. Security governance has to operate inside whichever model exists, which means the structure of the organization affects how policies are approved, how risks are escalated, how budgets are requested, and how responsibilities are shared. Structure does not guarantee success by itself, but it strongly influences whether security decisions are clear or confusing, whether issues move quickly or slowly, and whether important responsibilities are visible or left in the gaps between teams. Security governance itself is best understood as the system through which the organization directs and oversees its security efforts. That includes setting priorities, assigning accountability, approving policies, aligning security with business goals, monitoring performance, and deciding how risk will be handled. Governance is not the same thing as doing every security task by hand. Instead, it provides the framework that tells the organization how those tasks should be managed, reviewed, and improved. This is where structure becomes so important. Governance cannot work well when nobody knows who has the right to approve a control, who must fund a required improvement, or who must answer for unresolved risk. In strong organizations, governance creates clarity around those issues. It helps people understand what decisions belong at the executive level, what decisions belong to operational teams, and how security concerns should move upward when they become important enough to require broader organizational attention. One of the most important ideas for beginners is that security responsibility does not belong only to the security team. This is one of the biggest misconceptions in the field, and it causes trouble in many organizations. A dedicated security function may guide the program, define expectations, advise leadership, and coordinate major security activities, but it does not own every business process, every application, every data set, or every operational decision. Real protection depends on many people working in defined roles. System owners, data owners, business managers, technology teams, human resources staff, legal teams, procurement staff, and executive leaders all influence security outcomes in different ways. When that shared responsibility is understood clearly, security becomes much more durable. When it is misunderstood, people often assume someone else is handling an issue, and important risks remain untreated because ownership was never defined well enough for action to begin. At the top of the structure, the board of directors, or equivalent governing body, often plays an oversight role rather than a day-to-day operating role. New learners sometimes imagine that senior governing bodies manage security details directly, but their real responsibility is usually broader. They help ensure that security risk is being taken seriously, that leadership is accountable, that major exposures are visible, and that the overall direction of the organization includes proper attention to information protection and resilience. They are not normally approving routine access requests or deciding on small technical changes. Their role is one of oversight, challenge, and strategic awareness. A mature governance model ensures that significant security matters can be communicated upward in a form the board can understand. This matters because security is now tied to trust, continuity, legal exposure, and business performance, which means governing bodies need enough visibility to ask informed questions and hold executive leadership accountable for the state of the security program. Below that level, executive leadership carries a major share of responsibility for making security real. Senior leaders shape priorities, allocate resources, resolve conflicts between competing business demands, and decide how much attention security receives when budgets and deadlines begin to tighten. Even when an organization has skilled security professionals, the program can remain weak if senior leadership treats security as a side concern that matters only after a visible incident. Leadership responsibility in governance means more than approving an annual presentation. It means supporting policy direction, clarifying accountability, responding seriously to risk information, and ensuring that security is integrated into planning rather than treated as an afterthought. This is also the level where tone matters greatly. Employees notice whether leaders ask thoughtful questions about risk, whether they tolerate shortcuts, and whether they are willing to back security requirements when other pressures make those requirements inconvenient. Within the executive and senior management layer, the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, is often one of the central figures in security governance, though the exact title may vary by organization. The CISO role typically focuses on leading the security program, advising leadership, translating organizational risk into security priorities, coordinating policy and program direction, and helping ensure that controls, awareness, and incident capabilities are aligned with business needs. It is important to understand that the CISO is not simply the person who knows the most about security tools. In a governance context, the role is much broader. The CISO must bridge business goals, technical realities, compliance pressures, and risk decisions in a way that leadership can act on. A strong CISO function helps create coherence across the organization. A weak or isolated one may produce good advice that never becomes operational reality because the surrounding structure does not support the role with enough authority, access, or organizational trust. Other leadership roles also matter because security governance intersects with many domains outside the dedicated security function. Technology leaders influence infrastructure, application, and operational decisions that shape exposure. Legal and compliance leaders help interpret obligations and advise on response to incidents or regulatory concerns. Human resources leaders influence onboarding, training, acceptable behavior, and disciplinary processes. Finance leaders may affect investment decisions, control funding, and risk treatment choices. Procurement and vendor management functions shape how third-party security expectations are defined and monitored. Business unit leaders are especially important because they often own the processes, services, and information that security is meant to protect. Governance becomes stronger when these leaders understand that security is not someone else's side project. Their own roles create security consequences, and their participation is essential if the organization wants decisions, controls, and accountability to match the realities of how work is actually done. That brings us to the concept of ownership, which is one of the most important and most frequently misunderstood parts of security governance. Ownership does not simply mean familiarity or technical involvement. It means having defined accountability for an asset, process, risk, or decision. A system owner may be responsible for ensuring a business application is governed appropriately, even if another team manages the servers behind it. A data owner may decide who should access a category of sensitive information, even if administrators technically implement the controls. A risk owner may be the person expected to accept, reduce, transfer, or monitor a particular exposure. These distinctions matter because security breaks down when technical teams are assumed to own business decisions or when business leaders assume technical teams have accepted risks they were never authorized to accept. Good governance clarifies these boundaries so that authority and accountability stay connected instead of drifting apart. Operational security teams occupy another important place in the structure, but their responsibilities need to be understood in context. These teams may monitor events, manage security tools, assess vulnerabilities, support awareness efforts, investigate suspicious activity, help implement controls, and contribute expertise to projects and incidents. Their work is essential, but governance requires that it be connected to larger decisions about priority, ownership, and acceptable risk. If operational teams are expected to fix everything without business support, policy authority, or clear escalation paths, they often become overwhelmed and reactive. On the other hand, when governance is strong, operational teams are supported by defined processes, aligned leadership, and clear decision channels. That allows them to focus their efforts where they matter most. Beginners sometimes imagine operational security as the whole security picture because it is visible and concrete. But in reality, operations function best when the surrounding governance structure provides clarity about what the organization expects and who is accountable for the bigger decisions. Committees, councils, and steering groups often exist to help bridge different parts of the organization, and they can be very useful when designed well. In many organizations, security decisions require input from business leaders, technology managers, legal staff, privacy professionals, compliance teams, and operational stakeholders. A governance forum can provide a place where those perspectives come together, risks are discussed, priorities are reviewed, and decisions are elevated or coordinated across functions. The value of such a group is not in holding meetings for their own sake. Its value comes from creating a repeatable way to connect leadership attention with operational reality. A strong committee structure helps reduce surprises, clarify trade-offs, and keep security from becoming isolated in one department. A weak one becomes ceremonial, with little follow-through or real authority. This is why structure must be connected to actual decision-making power. Governance bodies that cannot influence action often create the appearance of control without producing meaningful accountability. Clear role definition is also essential because vague language is one of the most common sources of governance failure. If a policy says leaders must support security, that sounds positive, but it may not tell people what support actually means. If an organization says risk should be managed by the business, that may still leave unanswered who evaluates the risk, who approves treatment, who documents the decision, and who follows up later. Effective governance does not rely on broad good intentions alone. It defines responsibilities in a way that people can understand and act on. This may include who approves access, who reviews exceptions, who signs off on policies, who receives incident notifications, who owns continuity planning, and who has authority to accept residual risk. Clarity matters because people cannot consistently fulfill responsibilities that have never been made concrete. One of the quiet strengths of mature governance is that it reduces uncertainty about who should act, who should decide, and who should be informed. Good structures also recognize that independence and collaboration both matter in security governance. Security functions need enough independence to provide honest assessment, raise concerns, and report issues without being silenced by short-term operational interests. At the same time, security cannot become effective by isolating itself from the rest of the organization. It must work closely with business, technology, and support functions if it wants controls and policies to be realistic, adopted, and sustainable. This balance can be difficult. Too little independence can make security weak and politically constrained. Too much separation can make security detached and ineffective because it no longer understands the needs and pressures of the organization. Mature governance tries to preserve both qualities at once. It gives security enough standing to speak truthfully about risk while also embedding security deeply enough in business processes that the advice remains relevant, practical, and connected to how the organization actually operates every day. When structures, roles, and responsibilities are poorly designed, the resulting problems are often predictable. Risks go unowned, policies become vague, incidents are escalated too late, business leaders assume technical teams are making business decisions, and security teams become frustrated because they are expected to solve issues without the authority or support to do so. These problems rarely appear as one dramatic failure at first. More often, they emerge slowly through confusion, delay, duplication of effort, and unresolved disagreements about who is supposed to act. Over time, That confusion creates weak protection and weak accountability. Strong governance does not eliminate every challenge, but it reduces this kind of hidden disorder by making responsibilities visible and decision paths understandable. For new learners, that is one of the most important lessons to take away. A security program becomes stronger not only when the right controls are chosen, but when the organization is structured so that the right people can make the right decisions at the right time. When you look at the full picture, organizational structures, roles, and responsibilities are not administrative details sitting off to the side of security governance. They are the framework that allows governance to function at all. Structure shapes how authority flows, roles define who does what, and responsibilities connect decisions to accountability. Together, they determine whether security is coordinated or fragmented, proactive or reactive, and supported or isolated. For someone studying security management, the deeper lesson is that good governance depends on more than technical knowledge or policy language. It depends on an organization knowing who owns assets, who leads the program, who makes risk decisions, who oversees performance, and how information moves when important security issues arise. When those elements are clear and aligned, security becomes much more than a set of controls. It becomes a governed capability that the organization can direct, support, and improve over time, which is exactly what mature security leadership is meant to achieve.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.